For years, the debate around Europe's migration crisis and its rapidly shifting demographics, primarily driven by migrants from North Africa and the Islamic world, was kept on a tight leash. The Overton window refused to budge. Anyone who questioned the impact was dismissed as fringe, racist, or far-right. But now, even the most progressive voices can't look away, because things haven't gone as planned. Politicians are now openly calling for mass deportations. Cities are erupting into violence. Ethnic tensions are no longer whispers, they're street-level explosions. What was once unspeakable is now mainstream, and some are warning that Europe isn't simply unstable, it's on the edge of a civil conflict. The most recent signs emerged from Spain. Torre Pacheco's greenhouses feed half of Europe's winter vegetables. A third of its 40,000 residents are Moroccan or Algerian temporary workers. On 10 July, a 67-year-old pensioner was robbed and beaten outside a cafe by two teens police later identified as Maghrebi. Vox councillor Jose Angel Antelo posted the security camera clip on X with one line: "Remigration now." A Telegram channel titled "Deport Them Now Spain" exploded overnight. On the 12th of July, Spanish youths armed with glass bottles and iron bars marched through El Jimenado barrio, smashing halal butchers and shouting "Fuera, fuera" at terrified families. The civil guard fired rubber bullets, 10 people were arrested, 5 taken to hospital. An interior minister blamed the violence on those who equate migration with crime for electoral gain. But in Torre Pacheco, the damage was done. North African farm workers locked themselves indoors, and the town council demanded 120 extra officers to keep order. But this wasn't an isolated eruption. The same fire had already started to spread north, reaching the streets of Northern Ireland just weeks earlier. In June, two 14-year-old Roma brothers stood in court, accused of assaulting a 16-year-old local girl behind a Lidl. Loyalist activists packed the pavement outside, live streaming every word, waving union flags and shouting that outsiders are preying on our kids. By the time dusk settled, masked men in paramilitary hoodies were roaming the streets with weapons. The first night left 3 terraced houses in flames. Over the following 4 nights, violence rolled like a storm front. 32 PSNI officers ended up in hospital, and 28 homes were torched or ransacked. By 13 June, 38 rioters were in custody on charges ranging from arson to possession of explosives. The old Protestant Catholic fault line, it turns out, had now been joined by a new one: who belongs here and who does not. And just across the Irish Sea, the same fire was spreading, this time in England. In July 2025, the quiet town of Epping in Essex descended into chaos after Hadush Kebatu, a 38-year-old Ethiopian asylum seeker, was charged with assaulting a local woman. Within hours, right-wing accounts flooded X and Telegram, calling for retaliation. That night, protesters surrounded the Bell Hotel, where asylum seekers were being housed. What began as a demonstration quickly spiraled. Masked youths hurled bottles and flour, smashed police vans, and clashed with counter-protesters. Riot police were deployed, and arrests were made. Only days earlier, another migrant hotel was attacked, and now even Conservative MPs were demanding the hotel be shut down. From Mercia to Ballymena to Essex, the pattern is clear: a crime, a spark, then street-level violence. And this pattern reveals a lot. Tensions in Europe are no longer simmering, they're boiling over. Now, I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, you. No, seriously, this channel is completely fan-funded. No corporate overlords or gambling disguised as mobile games. Just regular people supporting through Patreon and helping keep this content independent. And if you're enjoying this video and the broader channel so far, consider signing up as a patron. You get perks like early access, Discord roles, and direct access to me. Links in the description below. Violence in the streets is only half the story, because what's happening out there is now being echoed in the halls of power. For years, European politicians tiptoed around the subject of mass migration. The language of assimilation, integration, and multicultural harmony was the only acceptable script. Anyone who deviated from it was cast as an extremist, labelled far-right, or dismissed entirely, but not anymore. Today, voices that were once dismissed as fringe are sitting in parliament, writing laws, and shaping the conversation. In Spain, Vox is no longer on the sidelines. Party spokesperson Rocío de Mer recently described Spain's immigration dilemma as requiring what she called an extraordinarily complex process of remigration. Not management, not reform, remigration. Vox leader Santiago Abascal didn't mince words either. In speech after speech, he called for the mass deportation of not only illegal immigrants, but also those who impose a foreign religion, disrespect women, or live off the welfare state. And it's not just Spain where hardline rhetoric is crossing into the mainstream. Cross the channel and you find Reform UK, Nigel Farage's reincarnated Brexit party, suddenly sitting at the top of the Westminster scoreboard. A late June YouGov megapoll ran 100,000 interviews and projected Reform would win 271 of the 650 common seats, more than Labour, more than the Conservatives, and enough to put Farage in Downing Street if an election were held tomorrow. Only 5 months earlier, our landmark Sky News YouGov survey had already shown Reform nudging ahead on the popular vote at 25%, with Labour on 24% and the Conservatives pushed into third on 21%. In other words, the language of remigration that Vox mainstreamed in Madrid is now carried by the single most popular party in the United Kingdom. 10 years ago, that conversation was off limits. Now, no one can look away. And nothing demonstrates this better than how people are voting. Across Western Europe, parties once dismissed as far-right, populist, or reactionary are no longer outliers. They're winning, and they're forming governments. In the Netherlands, Geert Wilders' PVV stunned the political establishment in late 2023 by winning the largest share of seats in parliament, 23.5% of the vote, up from just 10.1% in 2021. In Italy, Giorgia Meloni's party soared from 4.4% in 2018 to a dominant 26% in 2022, catapulting her into the Prime Minister's seat. France saw Marine Le Pen's national rally jump to a record 89 seats in 2022's National Assembly elections, an 11-fold increase that made her party the largest opposition force in the chamber. In Sweden, the Sweden Democrats hit 20.5% in 2022, becoming the country's second largest party and key backers of the current centre-right government. And in Austria, the Freedom Party just made history. In the 2024 national elections, they topped the vote at 28.8%, more than any other party. A post-war first for a party with open anti-immigration and anti-Islam stances. Beneath the ballots and headlines, the ground has been shifting for years, quietly, then all at once. Across Europe, the numbers tell the story. Spain's foreign-born population has nearly doubled since 2010. Germany now processes over 300,000 asylum applications every year, more than any other EU country. Ireland, once a nation of emigration, saw a record 141,000 immigrants arrive in a single 12-month stretch. And in city after city, the same strain is showing. Emergency housing is full, classroom sizes are exploding, hospitals are overwhelmed, and local councils are sounding the alarm. And while governments insist that immigration is necessary to plug labour shortages, what people feel, fairly or not, is that the system is stretched thin and that they are being pushed to the back of the queue. In Germany, nearly 2/3 of people say the country is overburdened. In Sweden and Austria, large majorities now want tighter controls. In Italy, a 2018 Pew study found just 5% wanted more immigration. The rest wanted less or none at all. The Overton window, that invisible boundary of what is socially and politically acceptable, has moved drastically. And nowhere is that clearer than what just happened in the UK. It was just revealed that the British government had secretly relocated nearly 20,000 Afghans into the country following a catastrophic Ministry of Defence data leak. But now it's out, and so is the price tag. The total cost of the operation is expected to hit £7 billion. In a political climate where councils can't house their own, where schools are full and budgets are thin, £7 billion for a covert relocation project is a spark in a room full of fumes. At this point, we're left with a question that's no longer fringe. What if Europe's future isn't just unstable, but ungovernable? Across the continent, Internal memos, defense white papers, and security briefings are now discussing what they once avoided: the slow emergence of civil war. The first pressure point? Parallel societies. In areas across France, Germany, and Denmark, local authorities no longer control the streets. In Denmark, over a dozen zones are officially classified as parallel societies, with their own customs and enforcement structures. In France, officials warn of lost territories where the state's Reich no longer runs. The second threat? Extremist escalation. In Germany, right-wing neighborhood patrols have popped up in a number of towns. In Sweden, police dismantled a jihadist cell planning retaliatory attacks in response to Quran burnings. In Ireland, Ballymena chief constable admitted that racially motivated incidents have now overtaken sectarian ones for the first time in police records. As institutions falter, rival ideologues step in. And finally, institutional breakdown. The UK's relocation of 20,000 Afghans brought about instant public backlash, with more data showing a £1 billion price tag on immigrants per month. Meanwhile, Germany is pushing for third country deportation deals outside EU law, and France is debating constitutional changes to restrict migration policy. None of this is inevitable, but the fact that these scenarios are no longer fringe fantasies, but logged, studied, and planned for, tells you just how close Europe is to the edge. Look, Europe isn't on the brink of civil war because people are different. It's on the brink because the people in charge refuse to admit those differences might matter. They forced rapid demographic change onto populations without consent, dismissed every concern as bigotry, and let tensions fester until now. Civil wars don't start with declarations. They start with fractures, parallel societies, vigilante groups, institutional breakdown. They start when people no longer believe the system represents them or even protects them. And right now, Europe is ticking every box. Whether it escalates into something larger, I don't know. But history tells us one thing very clearly. When you ignore pressure for long enough, it doesn't go away, it explodes. Hey, you made it to the end. As always, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and give the video a thumbs up. It really helps. A massive thank you to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. You're the reason I can keep making content like this. If you want to support the channel, consider joining the crew. Just hit the join button below or head over to Patreon. Even a small pledge goes a long way, and I would genuinely love to have you on board. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.